Hi guys, it's been a while since I've made any new presentations, but I've been wanting to do this presentation for a long time now. Um, I think this is going to clarify a lot of things in the Ezra Eagle prophecy as well as Daniel, Revelations. It's been really helpful for me just to go through this exercise. Um, I don't know about you if you're watching the news this last year. Obviously, we are all seeing these events unfold, and it's amazing to see how everything is ramping up and literally falling into place for everything we've been talking about. Especially if you've seen my all second coming timeline tracker and the update, as well as my Ezra Eagle presentations, you understand what I'm talking about. However, I keep hearing, it's fun to speculate, but I keep hearing different ideas, different speculations that are incongruent with what the scriptures are saying concerning our next leader. And it dawned on me that if you only study the Ezra Eagle prophecy or other prophecies without simultaneously looking at Daniel or even Revelations in the same time frame, you're not going to have this full picture. And so what I really want to we really do want to understand what is about to happen in the very near future. And I think things are about to get very real in this upcoming election cycle and the aftermath that follows. So I want to accomplish here, what I want to show you is the very near future of what is about to happen to our country and exactly who this next leader is. And it's important to know, as you can see on my caption here, Ezra's Eagle's visions are complementary. Ezra and Daniel's visions are complementary. And studying them together helps us finally clarify an often misunderstood clue that the king of the north is literally the first eagle head. So we'll make that case a little bit later. All right, so the overview. Why should we give credibility to the Apocrypha and Ezra? I need to visit this real quick because, if you're like me and you tell friends and family and they're kind of like, on the fence and then they bring up this argument that, well, it's Apocrypha. I want to clarify that. We're going to talk about who is the first eagle head and as explained in Daniel. How does the king of the north relate to this first eagle head? What clues do we have about the imminent political and economic changes that are about to take place? And then how does the stout horn or Antichrist come to power? So first off, one of the most read end time visions pertaining to our last days, for the days coming up, is Daniel's visions. And his visions culminating in his final vision were truly outstanding in their detail and information. He did not understand them himself personally, and they greatly troubled him. They were specifically given to him for our benefit in these last days. And understanding them is like having this roadmap or this timeline for upcoming future events. So for those that have eyes to see and ears to hear, would understand them in the last days. That would be you and I who really are interested in studying these things. Having this knowledge strengthens the saints in their preparation and negotiations through the coming chaos. So I'm going to talk about the immediate future of Daniel's and other visions so that we can know for ourselves what's next. The vision of Ezra and Daniel complement each other. I'm going to show you these together, unlike my previous presentations when I just covered Ezra's visions or others. What people don't realize, as I mentioned before, and the key here is the king of the north in Daniel is the first eagle head in Ezra. And you'll soon learn what I'm talking about. If you've seen Ezra Eagle deep dive analysis on my YouTube presentation, that's great. If you haven't, that might give you better context before you actually go forward with this. When you see this analysis together, you're going to realize that this is our next leader. Biden's term of office, which is about to be cut short by a wicked and unseen secret combination, is going to facilitate the rise of this next leader in America. So things are about to change in a dramatic fashion, and I'll explain why. Okay, first of all, why give credibility to the Apocrypha? If anyone is still skeptical or discredits Ezra's prophecy, it's because it's the Apocrypha. I would point you to two sources, the Bible Dictionary and Doctrine and Covenants 91. And just pull it out, read it to them. This should clarify it, but let's go with the Bible Dictionary. Apocrypha, secret or hidden. This word is generally meant those sacred books of the Jewish people that were not included in the Hebrew Bible, see canon. They are valuable as forming a link connecting the Old and New Testaments and are regarded in the church as useful reading. I'll say it again. They are regarded in the church as useful reading. Although not all books are of equal value, they are the subject of a revelation recorded in Doctrine and Covenants 91, in which it states that the contents are mostly correct, but with many interpolations by men. Obviously, there's interpretations and speculations and things that men may have put into apocryphal writings. Among these books, these apocryphal books, the following are of special value. The first book of Ezra and the second book of Ezra, which contains 7 visions or revelations made to Ezra. So of special value, the church's Bible Dictionary says these are of special value. And so I think you should, give more credibility that way. Let's read Doctrine and Covenants. Verily I say unto the, thus verily saith the Lord unto you concerning the Apocrypha, you meaning Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith brought it to the Lord and he wanted to understand, is this important for us to know? It says, there are many things contained therein that are true, and it is mostly translated correctly. Then it says there are many things contained therein that are not true, which are interpolations by the hands of men. So here's what he's saying. How do you discern this? How do you know? Verily I say unto you that it is not needful that the Apocrypha should be translated. Therefore, whoso readeth it, let him understand, for the Spirit manifesteth truth. And whoso readeth not by the Spirit cannot be benefited. Therefore, it is not needful that it should be translated. Amen. All right, so it's clear that the Apocrypha isn't needed for our eternal salvation. And we have established that many times previously. However, it is clear that some of the books are of special value, meaning we really could benefit from them. And one of those books is 1st and 2nd books of Ezra. D&C then instructs whoso readeth it, let him understand, for the Spirit manifesteth truth. So let me ask you this. Would you continue to believe that nobody on this earth in this dispensation has read it and understood it by the Spirit? Is that an argument that anybody would dare make? Here's a book. The D&C says that whoso readeth it, let him understand, the Spirit manifesteth. Would you believe that nobody has read it? Basically, it boils down to this. Those naysayers who discredit this information usually are the ones who haven't given any study to it or any interest in the subject. And, if you're like me, we're pretty excited about this, and we talk to our family and friends and stuff, and we get mixed reactions, right? Basically, it's easy and convenient to discount something to justify in their minds that they don't have to do their own exhaustive study and reading, subsequently thinking that they're not accountable to understand it. However, I don't fault them if they're just not interested, because it clearly states that it is not needful information in working out your salvation. But they should not make the mistake to assume that others aren't benefiting from its spiritual enlightenment. So because they don't study it, doesn't lend to the argument, therefore it's not valid or true or anything. That's ridiculous. What I'm trying to say is just don't let family or friends or whoever, neighbors, discredit your studies and your learnings. You have become blessed and enlightened through your study. And if others aren't interested, they will just not see or know as well as you will when events unfold. And frankly, that's probably okay. And you can then explain it when they are shocked beyond belief and their comfort zones and normalcy biases are shattered. So Joseph Smith clearly read and understood Ezra, Daniel. He asked the Lord about it. However, it wasn't needful for him to rehash these things. Think about Joseph. He was tasked with establishing the church before he was going to be martyred. And he obviously was too busy to speculate and spoon feed us the mysteries of the kingdom. And likewise, our current prophet and apostles. People say, you don't ever hear it at conference. That's because at conference, they talk about what's most important. And what's most important is not knowing this. It's your attributes. It's your testimony. Those things will prepare you for this. But what's most important is gathering Israel on both sides of the veil. So be going to the temple, be serving faithful in your calling, and at the best of your abilities, try and be a member missionary. Okay, key to understanding Daniel 11. One of the most useful points that Michael Rush, I'm a big fan, makes about understanding Daniel's visions. Frankly, I would refer you to Michael Rush, Daniel 11, and there's several other books I'd refer you to, but he describes and explains it well this way. His visions, which transcend from his day through the last days, is to understand the history and ideologies of his time through our time. So you got to know history, you got to know the way they think, you got to know the feel of this society. You understood the feel of Sodom and Gomorrah and the thinking and all that stuff just from Bible context. So you can learn a lot of history from the Bible. So when he refers to the king of the north and south from his day through these last days, it's going to have dual meaning. So Daniel's understanding what it means to him then, but we are understanding what it means to us now. So the key is his prophecies will shift from specific empires and geographies of his day to philosophical ideologies of our day. And you think of Babylon. It's an actual city, and it had a history. But then you hear about the horror of Babylon and the nature of Babylon. In our day, it's talking about a kind of church think. A church is a group of people who think similar. And so Babylon is like this modern day, last days church that thinks, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die, and take advantage of everybody. It's Satan thinking. So a similar approach to understanding is to understanding the visions of Ezra, who, like Daniel, saw significant pieces of the puzzle that complement and augment what Daniel saw. So look at Ezra's vision from his perspective and then from our perspective, and then Daniel from his perspective and from our perspective, and Revelations from John's perspective and ours, and etc. Ezra's interesting though, because he saw these visions and it didn't relate anything to his day, unlike Daniel, Isaiah, others. Okay, the bulk of Daniel's visions emphasize in detail what seems to be the final 7-year tribulation period, which is also covered by Ezra's Eagle vision. So, and then they're also in the Revelations timeline as well as words of Isaiah. These writings are pieces to a large puzzle, And by studying them together, it will give you this more sense of the whole picture. So what I'm about to show you mainly is how Ezra and Daniel pieces fit. And this was very helpful to me understanding this. These visions complement each other to help us understand the full context of what is about to happen. Okay, why did the Lord give so many detailed visions pertaining to the last times? If he didn't, why did he tell all these prophets and give them visions of the last times? Is he trying to suggest that maybe we should study him? Or is it just for us to let it happen and then be shocked and awed and then lose our testimonies? You know, there's a reason to study end times events. So in 2 Ezra chapter 12, for thou hast judged me worthy to show me the last times. This is Ezra speaking to the Lord, saying, you've showed me the last times, our day. And he, the Lord, said unto me, this is the interpretation of the vision. The eagle whom thou sawest come up from the sea is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of thy brother Daniel. Huge clue here. This eagle is the same kingdom and vision that Daniel saw. So this is the critical tie. People are like, when was Ezra and when was Daniel and when were they talking about? Well, they're contemporaries. They were given one piece of the puzzle each, but each other didn't understand it as well. And it says, but it was not expounded unto him, meaning Daniel. Therefore, now I declare unto thee, Ezra. So Daniel didn't understand the full context, but now he's declaring it to Ezra. So there's two takeaways here, and Michael Rush explains very well in his book, Daniel 11, which I'm going to expound on first, is the Ezra vision is of the last times, our day. This isn't the Roman Empire and whatever people have said. I've covered that in depth in my Ezra Eagle YouTube presentation, so I won't rehash it. Second is that his vision of the eagle kingdom, currently America, in the last days, is the same that Daniel saw starting in Daniel 11, verse 15. And it's the same that John saw in Revelation 17, starting 11 through 13. So keep in mind, Daniel's previous verses in chapter 11 gives context and cover the rise and fall and the changes of the Persian, Greek, Roman empires, the changing ideologies, etc., all the way up to the establishment of the final kingdom of America. That's John, that's Revelations. And I don't want to rehash and explain them because they're in the past. But if you're struggling with this information, then I'd encourage you to make it your own study to get that needed context. So I want to focus you on these three pictures. Here's Daniel. Here's his king of the north on the left. In the middle, this is Ezra's eagle's vision of America, starting with Herbert Hoover and going all the way up through the end. This eagle kingdom has three heads. These three heads we know are next to come onto the scene, frankly. The tie I want you to understand is this king of the north, Daniel's king of the north, is this middle eagle head. And I'm going to show you that later on. But it is this eagle head. Look at Revelations over here, this picture on the right-hand side. This is the beast kingdom, Satan's lair, so to speak, transcending from the beginning of Adam all the way till now. So you see all these beasts' heads or whatever, but in the last days you see this central head with these 10 horns and this stout horn in the front. This final central head and these 10 horns and stout horn is the equivalent of the central Ezra Eagle kingdom. Those are the same. So you're seeing this last day head kingdom and this whole Ezra Eagle kingdom. And keep in mind, these visions transcend time. So Ezra saw the right wing, and then he saw the left wing, and then he saw the four short feathers, and then as time went on, he saw the eagle heads and the Antichrist. So it's a progressive timeline image. And that's what Revelations, this beast, seven-headed beast or whatever is in Revelations, it's transcending time. And so the time frame we're at in Revelations is this central beast head, and then ultimately with the stout horn and the 10 horns that support the stout horn. Okay, that is equal to the whole Ezra Eagle. Okay. Clues from Revelations concerning this last beast kingdom. So let's look at Revelations real quick. I have to laugh, my image here. This is the Revelations beast with 10 horns somebody, put up here, and it just looked funny because it looked like that Demogorgon from Stranger Things, if you ever watched that. So I threw it there. But anyway, Revelation 17, 12 through 14. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom yet, but receive power as kings for 1 hour with the beast. The beast in this context is the fourth kingdom, and I showed you that on the previous slide. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast, the fourth kingdom. These 10 kings shall make war with the Lamb. Now remember, they become kings, but they don't start off as kings. I'll show you that later. So it's not King Charles or whatever. And I'm going to explain that. So we don't need to speculate. So first let's understand that we do not know yet who these 10 horns are. But as you look at global influential leaders, you can guess and speculate who they could be. Maybe folks like George Soros. He's got a ton of money and resources, and his ideology is towards socialism, communism, fascism, etc. People with that ideology and a lot of resources are people that I focus on a little bit more. Bill Gates, maybe, I don't know. We won't know until Biden leaves office. And we see this formation of the final stage of this beast kingdom. That's when we're going to know these more. So these are certainly behind the scenes now. They're a part of the secret combination now, and they are it will become plainly manifest as we see a global economic and political shift, ultimately giving power to these 10 horns and the stout horn, which is the Antichrist. So here's what we know about them. They aren't a king of anything, because it says, which have received no kingdom yet. So they have received no kingdom yet. They're not a king. They're not Prince Charles. They're not, probably not even a previous king like Trump or Obama or whatever speculate. So we're talking about the 10 horns, okay? But they could be handlers of these kings. They could be advisors. They are basically working for the deep state behind the scenes even now. So this secret combination plan is being run by what John in Revelations calls the whore of Babylon and the mother of harlots. Just taking money and selling your soul to the devil and just taking advantage and, all these things. So many are from America, but could also be other world influencers. This last kingdom is a global influenced kingdom. So they could be from other parts of the world. So it talks about them receiving power as kings. You don't receive anything until somebody gives it to you. And in this case, the population has to probably be the ones to give this to you. And it could be part of the handlers of the secret combination giving them the power. But I kind of feel it's a voice of the people that gives it to them. So when you think of like Hitler, Hitler used flattery and deception, And the people in the beginning absolutely loved him and supported him, everybody, and gave him this power, and then eventually he turned out to be a bad guy. All right, remember this last beast or kingdom is global in scale and reach and influence. So it is expected that the dollar will lose its world reserve currency status, just like the pound before it and the Deutschmark before that. It's not uncommon that there's a shift. And we know this because the Antichrist will have total influence and control of how we buy and sell. I mean, there's going to be a mark of the beast controlling and our buying and our selling, which to me, this suggests a digital currency system, which should scare you because you can control everything. You can see everything you buy, every vacation you go on. This is an ultimate control system, similar to what China would have. Not a crypto system, but a digital currency system. It says they receive power, but aren't elected to that power. So this is clearly a secret combination. They somehow become the ones in charge of everything. For that to happen, there's got to be political, economic chaos, or even some catastrophic event similar to 9/11. Regardless, these 10 horns having one mind, meaning they all have been plotting and scheming towards the same evil agenda. One mind, when you have a secret combination, it has the same evil agenda. So clearly we can see they're part of the secret combination. They all want the same thing. And guess what? They give, it says here, they give their power and strength to the beast, this last kingdom, the beast. Okay, and who leads this beast at the very end is the Antichrist. They give their power and strength. That, in other words, they give of their influence, their resources, their money to the final creation of this domineering kingdom. So look towards those who have the resources and influence and think like kingsmen in the Book of Mormon. They think socialistic, communistic, Marxist type thinking, Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, which gives plenty of strategies how to implement a government like that. Okay. Clues from Daniel concerning this last beast kingdom. Okay, we're going to go to Daniel. Now, we talked about Revelations and all that and the 10 horns, so let's go back to Daniel and Ezra. Daniel says, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, which is a kingdom, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and breaks in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all of the beasts, which were kingdoms, that were before it. And it had 10 horns. Aha! Clue. 10 horns in Daniel. And we just talked about 10 horns in Revelation. So now we're starting to tie some of these pieces of the puzzle together of this last beast kingdom. So first, know that this last kingdom is America, but it gains a global influence and reach and economy. When it says it stamped the residue, look, it's bad news. It has strong, it's strong and has great iron teeth, meaning a military force and a political and economic control unlike the world has ever seen. So imagine all the military weapons consolidated into one control. I mean, that would be, who could stand, right? Who could stand against that? It talks about devouring and breaking in pieces. So this has two parts. It probably means it punishes its enemies, like Iran and China and whatever. But it would also punish some of the deep state, the very same people who held up the secret combination, these whores of Babylon, so to speak, holding up secret combinations, or some of our current leaders. It could punish them. So if you look at Revelations 17, 16 through 17, the 10 horns hate the whore and eat her flesh and burn her and destroy her. Basically, they come up through the secret combination and then they turn against her and betray her and expose all these people, and they probably all go to jail, and who knows. I mean, the Lord's going to use the wicked to punish the wicked, right? That's what Michael Rush always says. So even though this beast with these 10 horn leaders are part of the secret combination, they will garner influence by appearing to be separate from it, and they will expose it to the world and galvanize the world's support towards them. Hey, these guys are really bad, and they're going to expose it, and then all the people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was so deceived, I'm so mad. And then they're going to look at the Antichrist and the 10 horns as just amazing people to follow, and the flattery of the Antichrist will convince everybody to just follow him, and ultimately we know where that goes. All right, so the world population in general will blindly follow it and sustain it to the point that even some of the very elect could be deceived by it. So another reason for understanding signs of the times. It's interesting that the Lord, you'll see later in this presentation, gave very specific hints because he wants us to know when this Antichrist comes to the scene, those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, he wants us to know and identify him so we're not tricked by following him like, oh, he's such a righteous person. And so the Stout horn is exceptionally masterful in his deception, similar to how Hitler was when he first came to power, as I talked on the previous slide. I mean, the guy came and everybody loved him, it was amazing, and then, boy, he turned out to be bad news. Daniel 7, verse 8. That was 7, this is verse 8. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them a little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. This is key to understanding the tie between Daniel and Ezra. And in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man and a mouth speaking great things. I mean, this guy has a powerful tongue, a deceptive snake tongue, but it's powerful. So we just learned in Daniel that this little horn comes up, okay, and he rises to power behind the scenes, and he is behind there were first 3 horns that are plucked up by the roots. They're removed, they're taken out on the scene. So if you just read Daniel, you wouldn't really understand this, but when you read Ezra's Eagle vision, it clarifies exactly. That's why it's so important to do these together, especially if you're trying to teach people this. So it's a critical tie into Ezra's Eagle. The little horn that comes up among the 10 current leaders is the Stout horn of the Antichrist. And when this Stout horn comes onto the scene, there are 3 of the first horns plucked up. It is these 3 that we are all waiting to see who they are. So, spoiler, we will soon learn that these 3 of the first horns plucked up are the 3 eagle heads in Ezra's Eagle prophecy, and that they are individuals. They're not legislative bodies or countries. They're individuals. Now, granted, they could be leaders of these legislative bodies. They could be leaders of the FBI, for all I know, or CIA, but they are not leaders from other countries, because they will take control of the governance of this Eagle Kingdom from America and then make changes to create this global kingdom with global influence. So it's not another country that somehow all of a sudden he's given the governance of America. That is not going to happen. All right, the critical piece of the puzzle is the King of the North is the first eagle head. We've said this several times. Let's read Daniel 15 and 16. So the King of the North, basically the first eagle head, shall come and cast up a mount and take the most fenced cities and the arms of the south shall not withstand, neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any strength to withstand. But he that cometh against him shall do according to his own will, and none shall stand before him. And he shall stand in the glorious land, America, which by his hand shall be consumed. Okay, if you just read Daniel, but not Ezra, you wouldn't have the clues to this from this perspective. So I'm going to interchange King of the North and first Eaglehead, Eaglehead 1. When this first Eaglehead takes over, get ready for a major conflict and war. What I want to bring your mind to is, why do we go to war? What provocation would trigger a war? I agree with them, but some of Michael Rush's theories that he put forth is that the war is retributive. It's a retributive attack from a type of catastrophic event that created this political chaos that leads to the rise of the three eagleheads, such as an atomic explosion that would remove Biden and much of the government, where Dick Cheney's shadow government that they implemented for this type of contingency would step in. So Dick Cheney has discussed this very scenario, which is why Rush mentioned it. He talked about how their administration has already established the shadow government during their presidency as a contingency for some type of provocation where the president or, these people were destroyed, and this government would step in and support the, country so it doesn't fall apart until elections could happen again and we could get reestablished. That was the contingency plan. So this provocation would certainly give the first Eaglehead or King of the North justification to go to war wherever he felt necessary. I mean, remember the response. Anyway, we'll get to it. When it talks about, it says he'll cast up a mount. That's throwing up your defenses. And then it says, and take the most fenced cities. That's on offense. And the most fenced cities, I mean, China, North Korea, all these, Iran, some of these cities are the most fenced. But because of other revelations, Iran seems the most logical first target for this instigated or crisis-initiated war because of their long-standing threat of nuclear weapons, which they don't have yet, but they've expressly intend to get and use against Israel and America. They've been bragging about it for decades now. So the King of the South is most likely referring to Middle Eastern countries, ideologies, and Syria's already been taken out, Iraq's been taken out, Afghanistan's been taken out, so Iran fits this description the best. Iran is also an easier target than nuclear-armed Russia and China at this point. So my Ezra Eagle presentations also give many hints and clues to it being Iran. And you really should watch all of the chapters I did, Ezra Eagle 11, but then 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, because that whole vision covers all of this. But I'm not going to rehash that here. So the nature and the ferocity of this war with potentially Iran, this puts the whole earth in fear. I mean, remember when America did Gulf War I and drove Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait? I was deployed over there shortly after this, but this was a show of force unlike the world had ever seen up to that point. I mean, this was the full might of the American military on display, and a president and a people with a desire to do it because of the 9/11 attacks. So just like Japan, when they woke the sleeping giant by attacking Pearl Harbor, just like Al-Qaeda, when they attacked the World Trade Towers and galvanized America's resolve and justified all actions against them and any country that would harbor terrorists like Iraq and Afghanistan. So in my mind, this seems like a very likely scenario that something bad happens again and triggers the most ferocious response the world will have ever seen. So certainly taking out our standing president would cause America to consolidate behind 3 eagle heads to retaliate. And remember, feathers 3 and 4, Biden is feather 2, feathers 3 and 4, maybe Kamala, maybe Pelosi after because of line of succession, they would be deemed too incompetent for this important task because Ezra Eagle says they're eaten up by the eagle heads. That's why I lean towards them. So when it references that this man will stand in the glorious land, which by his hand will be consumed, this is talking about America. This eagle head is bad news. By his secret combination, he will overthrow many freedoms and he'll consolidate power and control and make many changes that will eventually allow the Antichrist to have so much control and power later. So think about having a new economy, having new rules, new regulations, similar to what the Democrats are currently advocating, which is gun control, loss of freedoms of religion, freedoms of press, freedoms of speech, things like this, COVID mandates. I mean, that was a hint of the necessary steps that they took for our own safety and protection. I mean, you can claim safety and protection, and that's how everybody takes control. You know, we need a powerful dictator now because we're vulnerable to attack from another country. That's how these things happen. So this first eagle head makes many changes, and keep in mind that we are about to enter the 7 years of tribulation. So this timing couldn't be more precise. I've talked about this. It's Elul 29 on this September 5th. It's the last day of this 70-year Jubilee, the last and final 70-year Jubilee. It's the last day of the Shemitah. It's the beginning of a 7-year trial. It's the last day of Joseph's 7 years of plenty. It's the beginning of the 7-year tribulation in Egypt. Does it come in with a bang? Maybe not. I'm not expecting some big giant catastrophe to happen on October 5th or September 26th. But I think this political election cycle and the results and then the actions that the secret combination takes, maybe they do blow up Biden and kill him, and then all this chaos, I think we literally could see things that are imminent and going to be happening very soon. I don't know if General Conference, they'll talk about this. They won't mention it. I think it'll be the same General Conference. Focus on this, focus on that. But if there's some warnings, oh my gosh. So I'm not sure how 7-year tribulation period enters. Whether it comes in with a bang, all of a sudden it's just night and day, or whether we quickly ramp up into some tribulations. But we know it's labor pains, and transitional labor gets more and more and more intense all the way to the end. So we're beginning transitional labor intensity. Okay, the king of the north takes out feather 3 and 4, and we alluded to this. Ezra 11, 31 and 33. And behold, the head was turned with them that were with it. So this is eagle head 1 wakes up, and 2 and 3, and the 3 heads are turned with them. They wake up. What wakes up? How do they wake up? We've been talking about them waking up, but maybe it's this usurpation of the government that wakes them up. So, and it says they returned with it and did eat up the 2 feathers under the wing that would have reigned. This is the 2 presidential candidates that are supposed to reign. They are supposed to, by our Constitution, be the next president. So unless Donald Trump's theory, swung in somehow and, won the election before 2024, it doesn't make sense to me. Biden is sooner away than Trump. He's eagle head 2. And then after that, these 2 eagle feathers are eaten up by the eagle heads. And it says, but this head put the whole earth in fear, and bear rule in it over all those that dwelt upon the earth with much oppression. And it had the governance of the world more than all the wings that had been, all the previous presidents. This head has more control and governance of the world. When you govern a world, you are the boss of the world. You're the political leader of the world. It's your economy, it's your rules, it's your legislation, all that stuff. And it's worldly, governance of the world. So can you see how political chaos is imminent? Biden is sooner away than Trump. He doesn't make it to 2024. If Biden dies, the presidency by natural succession goes to Harris. And if Harris dies or isn't disallowed or whatever, it then goes to Pelosi. I don't think Harris dies because she would think to reign, is what the prophecy says, and then she's eaten up, and then Pelosi would think to reign, she's eaten up. Okay, so that's why I think they could reign and be president. This eagle head eats them up. So again, I take this as forcibly removed, maybe by death or other means, or just some type of usurpation of this constitutional provision. And this usurpation would be justified in the minds of everybody only if something bad were to happen to Biden. I mean, think about it. The American people would be demanding a strong leader with a strong response. And clearly Harris and Pelosi would not be seen as up to such an important task. Let's be honest with you. She's vice president because of her race. All right, I'm going to throw this out there. I think November's political elections and the period leading into January would be a very good and natural timing for these secret combinations to make whatever necessary moves it needed to implement all of these changes. I mean, imagine the extent they might go if one political party is going to dominate and win the House and Senate. What would happen if things don't go their way? So get ready for major changes in my mind. This midterm and the aftermath of this midterm could be a catalyst, in my mind, for the whore and the secret combinations to take dramatic actions. We already saw dramatic actions taken in a stolen election with Trump, making him a short feather. That's the only way it would make Trump a short feather, was that it was stolen. Or the whole prophecy is bogus. That's the two outcomes of that election. The Ezra Eagle prophecy is all garbage and didn't work out, or that election actually was stolen. Okay, verse 33. When it says, but this head put the whole earth in fear and bear rule over all that dwelt with much depression, etc., and more than all the wings. Can you see how this head puts the whole earth in fear if his military response and his strength is what we think? I mean, the sleeping giant is awakened. I mean, when Pearl Harbor was attacked, the sleeping giant awoke, right? When the 9/11 attacked, the sleeping giant awoke. This sleeping giant, if they were to lose their leader, that would be on a higher precedent than anything that has ever been. And Biden's sooner away than Trump, so who knows what's going to happen. So he says it bears rule with much oppression, and that so that this war doesn't just start and end with Iran, but it extends to the Isles of the Seas and others. Remember, it talked about he takes the most fenced cities. Maybe we haven't got to that yet, but anyway, he also has the governance of the world. This suggests that he implements global economy and reset, and sets up the remaining 10-horned beast kingdom. This head is clearly the king of the north and will be with us long enough to accomplish all these changes and establish a kingdom for the Antichrist to control. So This last verse here we just talked about in Ezra, this was an overview of what the eagle head does, but now the following verses get more specific in how the stout horn comes on the scene and this interpolitics and this betrayal of these leaders, ending in the transfer of power. All right, Eagle Head 1 attempts to frame the stout horn to maintain power. So here we are, we're back in Daniel. We learned things from Ezra, but now let's go back to Daniel to get more clues here. Daniel 11:17. He, the Eagle Head 1, or the King of the North, he shall set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him, good people even with him in the military. I've got 3 kids in the military. So thus shall he do, and he shall give him the stout horn, the daughter of women, corrupting. Oh, excuse me, I misunderstood this. So he, King of the North, shall set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom. So he's trying to take over this whole kingdom, right? And the upright ones. This is really cryptic. He says he gives him the daughter of women, corrupting her, but she shall not stand on his side, neither be for him. This is very Jeffrey Epstein type approach. I mean, did Jeffrey Epstein, did he blackmail anybody? Did he film political leaders secretly in the bedrooms with underage girls and then blackmail them? I mean, a secret combination has a way of keeping its loyalties. I'll just tell you that. So it's interesting because this scripture passage seems like a similar approach for leverage over this brilliant newcomer who seems to have this superior intellect and ability for strategy. So you have the King of the North, the next eagle head, and he's did this with this stout horn that's rising up. Basically this Antichrist waiting in the wings. Why would Eagle 1, King of the North, why would he, with the most power over all the earth, seek advice or even give the time of day to the stout horn? Well, clearly this Antichrist guy is brilliant. He's capable. He becomes the new right-hand advisor, and basically they create this fellowship of the eagle heads with the stout horn. It's like there's this initial fellowship with these guys. The 3 eagle heads, and they're in charge of America. The stout horn comes, I don't know if he even comes from America, frankly, but he could. So when one has dark secrets to keep, secret combinations that wouldn't be accepted by the general population, they would need this type of insurance policy. So clearly I'm speculating, and time's going to tell, but I can't see any other reason or meaning for this scripture. So this young lady, this daughter, I mean, it sounds like an underage girl, does not stand with him and is probably repulsed by this Antichrist. He doesn't have attractive features. Okay, Daniel 11:18, the next verse. And after this, he shall turn his face unto the isles and shall take many. He, meaning the King of the North, the eagle head 1. So remember, he went to war with Iran, a retributive war, a retaliation type war. Then it seems like this Antichrist is coming to the scene and advising him. And now this Antichrist is advising Eagle 1 to turn face towards the isles of the sea and take many. Then it says, but a prince for his own behalf. So a prince, which is actually not the other eagle head, for his own selfish reasons shall cause the reproach offered by him, eagle head 1, to cease. So this is a little bit hard to understand. We'll go through it. But without his own reproach, he shall cause it to turn upon him. So he's going to blame him for all the bad, and America's are. Anyway, I'll read this. The stout horn is weaseling his way in and counsels and strategizes to turn his face unto the isles of the sea, which is maybe like North Korea and others. Then it gets a little cryptic, so it's worth dissecting Ezra's vision to help us understand Daniel's passage here. So it's really only with Ezra's vision that we can now understand the remainder of this Daniel's passage. A prince, Eagle 2, for his own behalf, basically his own reasons, desires for power, shall cause the reproach. That's the distrust and the fatigue that Americans are voicing about Eagle 1's tyrannical wars and behavior. So that's the reproach offered by him, Eagle 1, to cease, to end. So without his Eagle 2's own reproach, he, Eagle 2, shall cause it to turn upon him, Eagle 1. He's going to, basically, this Daniel mess, Ezra clarifies this mess. We know that Eagle 2 kills Eagle 1, probably to divert blame and to fix the unpopularity and the disagreements and the economy, etc. But ultimately, Daniel has already explained that the stout horn was behind the removal of Eagle 1, 2, and 3 because the first 3 were plucked up, as we learned earlier. So this cryptic scripture is best understood because Ezra clarified it. Eaglehead 2 may have killed Eaglehead 1. Okay, this is what I'm talking about in the clarification. Ezra 12, 26 through 28, and whereas thou sawest that the great head appeared no more, it signifieth that one of them shall die upon his bed, and yet with pain. For the 2 that remain shall be slain with the sword, for the sword of the one shall devour the other, but at last he shall fall through the sword himself. 3, he, the last, shall fall through the sword himself. So several takeaways. This sheds light on what we previously discussed and the meaning of the previous Daniel verses that we were struggling to understand. The first eaglehead dies in pain in bed, and Daniel just explained that Eagle 2 was behind the removal of Eagle 1. See, we wouldn't have known that. We wouldn't have known that without Daniel. Actually, no, without Ezra. So there, it was a death. Then of the 2 heads remaining, one is killed by the third, and then the third at last head kills himself. And remember, these 3 leaders preceded the stout horn and the League of 10 Horns, but who ultimately was behind the removal of these 3 leaders? The stout horn was behind plucking them up. I don't know how that looks. Did he convince number 3 to kill 2, and then 3 to kill himself? I don't know how it looks, but he was behind the removal of this. Remember, this guy has some blackmail abilities as well. He can throw you under the bus, blackmail you, make you become suicidal somehow, so who knows? All right, so we established that the stout horn was the one that caused all 3 to be plucked up by their roots. So he could rise up through the ranks to become the new leader of the entire world. The stout horn is the Antichrist. So Ezra's eagle, just in that one verse, gave us the sky view of all these heads. And now we bounce back to Daniel for the specifics that we can now understand. Daniel 11:19 and then 11:20. 19, it says, then he shall turn his face toward the fort of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. So, Eagle 1. So refer to the previous slide if you need to refresh this. But this, actually, the first slide was Eagle 1. So this is the second eagle head because the first is now gone and he withdraws from the wars abroad, this second head. And this second head focuses back at home, but then quickly disappears from the scene because the third and final eagle head kills him, as we have just learned why and how in Ezra's verses. So the king of the north was Eagle 1. Eagle 2 and 3 are really short-lived, and then the stout horn. So in my mind, feathers 4 and 5 are not even existent. Eagle Head 2 and 3 are basically barely existent. You have two more leaders generally. You've got King of the North, Eagle 1, and then you've got Stout Horn, Antichrist. All right, Daniel 11:20. Then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes, and the glory of the kingdom. But within a few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. Wait a minute. In Ezra, it said he fell on the sword himself, like he killed himself. He committed suicide, it sounds like. But it says, a few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. So this guy just up and kills himself for some reason. There was no anger, there was no fighting, there was no battle. He just takes his own life. That's what it sounds like to me, suicide. And who convinced him to do this? And what blackmail techniques did the Antichrist take to do this? So the third head stands up in the place of his predecessor, okay? The second head, that's what it talks about. And he's a raiser, he raises taxes and he begins rebuilding America. But he literally only lasts a few days. He's basically summarily executed to get out of the Stout Horn's way, or he kills himself. And the Stout Horn does, if the Stout Horn's behind this, he does it without anger or remorse or battle. Or maybe that means my previous thought that it was a suicide. If it is the Stout Horn that actually kills him, but there's no hint to that, it's something that just needs to be done, and that would be a strong hint to the calloused soul of how the Stout Horn or the Antichrist will deal with people and obstacles in the future. All right, the Stout Horn Antichrist begins his reign. 2 years, 10 months in America, 3.5 years across the pond. Okay, Daniel 11:21 and 22. And in his estate, so this is the leadership position Eagle Head 3 recently had until he killed himself. So, and in his Eagle Head 3's estate shall stand up a vile person, the Antichrist, the Stout Horn, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom. Who is they? It's the 10 horns and maybe even the people, but he's not given the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries, because he's a smart dude. And with the arms of a flood, they, everybody else, shall be overflown before him and shall be broken. So this Antichrist might not even be in the pecking order, and because he's not given the honor of the kingdom, it suggests that he might not even be American. However, he just removed the 3 American political leaders of this final beast Revelation's kingdom. These 3 heads had this secret combination going on, and the Stout Horn was part of that. I mean, he wasn't part of the plan to rise up, but he helped at that rise. But he's smart. He uses flatteries with the world, and with the arms of a flood, he steamrolls over all the secret combinations, the deep-stated people, the whore of Babylon people. The eagle heads were the head of it, and he just broke them. And then their whole secret combination structure. Can you see why people, when they learn this, will see this Antichrist as a good dude? So deep-stated people, he completely breaks and destroys them, and he, with the assistance of these 10 horns, is now exclusively the final fruition of this beast kingdom. Okay, we're going to go from Daniel here to Revelation 16 and 17. The 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore of Babylon, the peoples with the secret combination, and shall make her desolate and naked. Boy, they're going to be exposed. And shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and to give their kingdom unto the beast. So They now have a kingdom. They're kind of leaders now, but they give all their resource and kingdom to the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled. So let's look at this. The Antichrist and 10 horns expose the secret combinations. I mean, they used it to get to power. Now they expose it. They make it naked. They eat their flesh. They burn it. This gives them global influence and power and popularity, similar to when Hitler first came on the scene. God uses the wicked to punish the wicked, and clearly he's going to use the Antichrist and the 10 horns to expose this. And then he uses this beast to destroy the horns. So remember, many people think that the whore of Babylon is the Catholic Church because it's had a bad history and pedophilia and other stuff. But remember, the definition of a church back then isn't this organized churches of religion specifically, but it's a theology and ideology and culture and like-mindedness of a group of people. So Babylon, in the last days, all these wicked secret combination people is what is being destroyed, not like this Catholic Church specific reference. So references, I'm going to read that again, what I just explained. References to a church anciently meant peoples with similar ideologies and beliefs. And so the whore of Babylon is actually all those getting rich and powerful from the work of the people. The whore is ultimately represented by the heads, 3 heads, and the king of the north. But now the Lord causes the Antichrist and the 10 whores to expose it and destroy it and eat it. So I'm going to do another presentation on the Antichrist and the 10 horns, but hopefully you can now distinguish between the king of the north and then the Antichrist and League of 10 horns. It's a transition of this kingdom. We are about to see the king of the north, the Eaglehead One's kingdom come to fruition. Then it will transition to the Antichrist's kingdom with even more power. I hope that you found value in this. I'm not going to cover all the Antichrist stuff, all the other stuff, but hopefully you understand, as things unfold and how maybe you can present this to other people. Take care. God bless you, everybody. Do the right thing, and we'll talk to you next time.